Hello and welcome. My name is Shailesh Kumar and you're watching National Defense. Now, India's national hero, Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, is back home. Today, Defense Minister Nirmala Sitharaman met the officer in Delhi's R&R hospital. The officer is in high spirit and was happy to meet RM. National Defense brings you inside story from the top gun of Indian Air Force that authentically explain all aspects of Wing Commander Abhinandan shooting down Pakistan Air Force's most modern F-16D fighter jet with his vintage MiG-21 Bison aircraft. Former Vice Chief of Air Staff Air Marshal K.K. Nowar, who is currently the Director General of Center for Air Power Studies, explains the full episode with a perspective. In the US-Vietnam War, North Vietnam had mix of outdated MiG-17 and MiG-21 aircraft and had to fight against America's advanced F-4 Phantom aircraft. Vietnamese devised ground-controlled interception to carry out the high-speed pass against F-4 Phantom, which could not intercept MiGs, and the US had to suffer huge losses. Americans analyzed the situation, and this gave rise to the birth of world's most modern fighter jet, F-16. But perhaps first time thereafter, Wing Commander Abhinandan taking down the F-16 Block 52 with his MiG-21 Bison, and this became possible because of very lethal short-range air-to-air missile R-73.
Now, if you recall, the North Vietnamese Air Force during the Vietnam War, and that was in the late 60s and mid 70s, they felt that they were completely swamped as far as the number of aircraft that the Americans were able to throw against them. Now these aircraft, but the North Vietnamese had to come out with some very good tactics. So they said, okay, we have got only the outdated MiG-17s and the newer MiG-21s with them. But they had one ace up their sleeve, and that was their ground control interception. The ground control interception radars were able to position these MiG-21s in a position of advantage with respect to these F-4 Phantoms that were coming to drop bombs on the Vietnamese targets. So with this, and the MiG-21 is an aircraft which has got a very small frontal area. So when you look at that aircraft, you are not able to spot it till it is very late. And plus it was a supersonic aircraft. It can go twice the speed of sound. So these ground control interceptions, when the controllers, what they did, they used to position them for carrying out a high-speed pass against the F-4s. And the F-4s, the Phantoms pilots could never spot the MiG-21. And because they could not spot, the MiG-21s were able to get a quick kill and run out from there and escape from there. So that was in the 60s. The Americans counted their losses, and thereafter they found that there were people like Colonel John Warden, who was in the Vietnam War. So they said, we have to devise something to make sure that we don't, the amount of losses that they suffered with respect to the MiG-21, they said we have to reverse. We have to find some answer to defeat the MiG-21. And that's when this F-16 was born out of a necessity. And this F-16, over the years, from the mid-70s and early 80s, now it has reached a stage where there are more than 2,000 F-16s in the United States Air Force, and worldwide there are more than 2,500 F-16s that are flying, and it is considered to be the most versatile aircraft in the world today. And of course, there are a lot of upgrades that are carrying on. So this particular aircraft, as far as the Pakistan Air Force is concerned, it had in this particular incident, it was the Block 52, the F-16D, which is a two-seater. And the F-16D, the Block 52, is an aircraft that carries the beyond visual range missiles, and some of these missiles are the AMRAAMs that were handed over to Pakistan by the United States in 2014 as part of the excessive defense articles. That was when the United States forces were withdrawing their troops from Afghanistan in their global war on terror. As far as the MiG-21 is concerned, as for the Indian Air Force, like I said, it is a very vintage aircraft, but it has gone through a series of upgrades. And the upgrades on the aircraft that was involved, which Abhinandan was flying, was the MiG-21 Bison, which is the latest upgrade aircraft. And that aircraft is able to carry the R-73 short-range air-to-air missile. It is an all-aspect air-to-air missile. It has got infrared homing, and it is considered to be the most dangerous air-to-air missile. And in a close combat, in a close combat situation, you will find that this proves very lethal, as has been proved in this particular combat.
Are the days for dogfight or furball over? Well, even the world's one of the most stealth aircraft, F-22 Raptor, is designed in a way to fight in a dogfight scenario. Wing Commander Abhinandan was fighting in an eyeball-to-eyeball scenario and brought down one of the two F-16s he was sandwiched between. When Beyond Visual Range Missile or BVR fails or there is no countermeasure, it is the gun that comes to the rescue of a fighter pilot. There is still no countermeasure to avoid the bullet of the gun in fighter aircraft. Wing Commander Abhinandan was trained to fight in furball scenario, and he proved the mettle of his training in Indian Air Force.
If you say that the day of the dogfight is over, then if you throw your mind to what the designers have done in terms of designing the F-22. Now, when the F-22 has been designed, it is supposed to be the most modern aircraft in the world today. Now, it has got stealth capability. It has got capability to be able to maneuver very energetically in combat, if required to maneuver within visual range and in what is termed as the furball. That means you are now forced to carry out a dogfight against another person because your beyond visual range missiles have failed, and or they have been deflected by the countermeasures that the enemy has adopted, and now you are forced into a dogfight. Now what happens? Till such time that there is a countermeasure that is developed against the bullet, that is the lead bullet which is fired from the cannon, till that time man can continue to develop countermeasures for missiles, but so far no countermeasure has been designed for that bullet which is carried in the gun. So designers and tacticians, they realize the importance of the gun, and they realize the importance of a dogfight in a future air combat situation. So that is why the furball, what is termed as a furball, will always ensue in a dogfight. And this is exactly what happened over here. Abhinandan, he found that he was trained to be able to take on the adversary, and he was trained, his entire life has been towards engaging the enemy in air combat. All his training in terms of close combat, beyond visual range combat, when he was in the Sukhoi 30s and even in the Bison, has been geared towards this. But if he is forced into a close combat, he is also trained for that. He is trained adequately for that. And here's an opportunity that is presenting himself. There he sees, he carries out, he is controlled by the ground controlled interception, by the controller, and he finds that he is able to either visually spot or spot on his radar. He is able to spot the adversary. And this is an opportunity no fighter pilot worth his salt will ever let go. He will find that, all right, if I have a lock-on on an adversary and I subsequently have possibly a visual contact, and the capability that his missile systems allow him, that means he's got off-bore sight capability. That means the enemy, he does not have to look at the enemy through the bore sight. He's got a helmet-mounted sight, and if he looks over his shoulder or he looks onto his left or right, wherever the enemy is, and his sight is pointing towards that, his missile will automatically slew and lock on. And he'll be able to launch his missile even when he is not favorably positioned. And when he found that everything was, all systems were go, and he found that his missile was giving him a lock-on tone, he chose to maneuver to get into a favorable position with respect to the F-16, and he engaged him successfully.
Pakistan violated Indian airspace. Pakistan violated US law by using F-16. Air Marshal K.K. Nowar explains how Pakistan violated the US laws. Pakistan is intruder. Pakistan is an aggressor. It never cared of international laws. It ditches even those who helped this nation. By using F-16 fighter jet against India, Pakistan has violated the US law. The air-to-air missile AMRAAM can only be fitted in F-16 jets in the squadrons of Pakistan Air Force. The pieces of AMRAAM missile which were found in east of Rajouri in Indian territory proves the fact. In 2014, US President Barack Obama gave 500 of these missiles to Pakistan to use only in defensive role. Pakistan never cared for international laws. It gets military aid but only to misuse or abuse.
The two pilots who are lost, who have been in, one possibly has lost his life, that we have come to know now, and the other one possibly is injured. Especially for the pilot who has lost his life, as air warriors the world over, the band of brothers as far as fighter pilots is concerned, our heart goes out to the families of this pilot from the Pakistan Air Force, and we condole his death. He is the son of a very senior officer, the Deputy Chief of Air Staff Operations, who is also an Air Marshal in the Pakistan Air Force, and he was on a mission that was ordered to him, and just like our boy Abhinandan, both were on a mission, and it is just unfortunate that he lost his life. And of course we've come to know that it's because of the action by his own people, but that's all part of normal operational risk that everybody takes, and he had to succumb to all the injuries that were inflicted upon him. But at this stage I think we need to take a moment's rest, a little respite, and condole this officer's death. As far as the US law is concerned, as far as the utilization of the F-16 offensive in offensive terms is concerned, you need to throw your head back and think about what happened to the United States. Their arrangement with countries. The Pressler Amendment was initiated in 1961, which demanded that if America was giving assistance to other countries, to any nation, they had to certify, the President of the United States had to certify that this country was not building or assisting in the proliferation of nuclear weapons. If the President of the United States, he was required every year to sign this particular declaration that yes, they are not following a nuclear program. So everything went well, and Pakistan kept getting all assistance in this regard. Subsequently, in 1990, by that time, the Pakistani nuclear program had reached some stage where the Americans knew, and at that stage, the Americans, they very categorically, President George Bush Sr., he said he refused to sign the Pressler Amendment, that certification saying that he refused to give a waiver to Pakistan. So that carried on, and all military aid to Pakistan stopped at that stage. Now it reached a stage where in 1995, with President Bill Clinton, when he was the president, he asked one of his senators, Senator Brown, to introduce an amendment so that the 13 or 14 F-16s that were lying at their factory at Lockheed Martin at Texas, in Fort Worth, Texas, they were lying and occupying space in thing, and these were actually supposed to be sold to Pakistan. So since they were lying and not being utilized, he said, okay, we must seek an amendment to this particular Pressler Amendment, an amendment to the Pressler Amendment. And the Brown Amendment, what it was called subsequently, was issued in 1995, by which Pakistan was given a waiver. They said, okay, this waiver can be signed by the president, and he gave a presidential waiver to continue supplying arms to Pakistan. So that continued, and subsequently, as far as in 2014, the Pakistanis, after 2001, of course, they got assistance in the global war on terrorism once 9/11 happened, and they were supposed to help out the Americans in the global war on terror. They were given a lot of military aid at that time also, apart from other economic aid. But in 2014, like I had mentioned earlier, President Obama, he had excessive defense articles that were available in Afghanistan, and he decided to give a lot of these to Pakistan, which included 500 AMRAAMs, a lot of armored personnel carriers, a lot of trainer aircraft, jet trainers, and also some F-16s. So these are the AMRAAMs that are now being used in an offensive role, whereas US law prohibits the Pakistan Air Force to use them in offensive roles. They're supposed to be used only in defensive roles.
So they violated.
They violated that. They violated the US law.
Pakistan not only delayed the release of Wing Commander Abhinandan, but it forcefully made a doctored video of India's fighter pilot Abhinandan in its custody. The doctored video exposes Pakistan's ISI that they indulge in psyops and even torture prisoners of war, violating Geneva Convention to carry out propaganda war.
As per the Geneva Conventions, which were formed after the culmination of World War II in 1949, the war ended in 1945, and the world body sat down and they said, okay, we must have a set of rules that should govern the conduct of, as far as for prisoners of war, how should they be treated in war or in warlike conditions, in times of armed conflict between two nations. What should be the conduct? There should be some set of rules that should govern their conduct. And these were termed the Geneva Conventions. And there were some additional protocols that were subsequently in 1977, after the experience of various wars and their experience, they said, okay, we will have these additional 4 protocols. And these were ratified by 196 countries. So in some of these protocols, they're very clear of how treatment should be meted out to a person who becomes a prisoner of war or in a warlike condition. And Abhinandan fell in exactly these conditions. And he was required to be given treatment, humane treatment. He was not required to be tortured. Here, when I say tortured, it also includes mental torture. You know, where you put a person in front of the camera, you do not know whether there's a gun to his head or there's they're arm twisting a person to read out a particular statement. And from what we hear, that the statement that has been put out and which was aired for some time, it indicated that it's been extremely doctored. It's very easy for me to write a full paragraph and inject one line that I want to be heard, thereafter put some nonsense, and then put the other line which I need to, delete the portion in between, so that runs as a continuous paragraph. And so it's very easy for it's not rocket science to make this kind of a statement. But perception management has been their forte, and they've been doing it all the years. So it is nothing new as far as the ISI is concerned, and this is what they tried to achieve. That all right, when you are releasing a prisoner of war so soon, what is it that we can get in return? So they said, okay, let's try and give the world an acknowledgement that by an Indian prisoner of war, that actually speaking, the state of Pakistan, the army of Pakistan, is a humane army and has treated him well, and it's only the Indian media that is getting after and exacerbating the situation. So I thought that was in very poor taste what they did.
What happens when a fighter pilot falls behind the enemy lines? We now know the treatment meted out to him. We all have seen his injuries. Despite in the enemy hands, he faced the enemy with dignity, courage, and unimaginable courage. This is the spirit of a true soldier.
Initially, much to their disadvantage, they released the videos of Abhinandan virtually getting attacked by these civilians in a fit of anger, and he got injured, and then him being marched with those cuts on his faces, and then of course he was standing ramrod straight under the circumstances. He did everything that a soldier is trained for, that a fighter pilot is trained for, and he did everything in terms of trying to escape, survive, and thereafter, thereafter he stuck to his briefing of naming only what was required under the Geneva Conventions. So that action by him was absolutely spot on. Now, as far as physical injuries are concerned, the extent of them was very visible yesterday when he was being released at Wagah. His eye seems to have taken a lot of, the brunt of the the beating that he has received initially, and that will heal. The physical injuries will heal, I'm quite confident. But it is the mental injury, the torture that he's been through, that will stay with him for some time. And it is up to us, all of us, whether it is his family, whether it is his friends in the squadron, whether it is a service, that needs to be very careful in ensuring that he gets the correct treatment from now onwards, and we need to nurture him to get him back on track at the earliest. It is our collective responsibility.
Pakistan has not arrested Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Maulana Masood Azhar despite dossier provided by India. In this scenario, do we have capabilities to neutralize Maulana Masood Azhar or take him out, what US Navy SEAL did with Osama in Abbottabad? The whole world knows the crimes of Maulana Masood Azhar. He is not a religious person. Rather, he is an international terrorist waging jihad against many countries, including India. Responsible for latest attack in Pulwama, killing 40 innocent Indians. If Pakistan does not hand him over within a reasonable time frame, experts say India reserves every right to neutralize the enemy of the nation, and Indian armed forces are capable of repeating Abbottabad in Pakistan.
Not the first time that Pakistan has backtracked on admitting that they are the hotbed as far as terrorism is concerned, and Jaish-e-Mohammed is operating without any restrictions from their territory. But for them to now admit that the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief is in Pakistan territory, I think is a step where they realize that the international pressure is building on them. And to that extent, for them to now say that he is not well, he's ailing, is an admission that all right, he is there, he is in the country, and possibly at an appropriate time, will they ever hand over to him? I doubt it. There's no chance of them ever handing over this thing, because it'll be something which is for them, it'll be like letting down the people who actually perpetrate all the designs of the Pakistan army. So if that is so, if they're not going to ever hand over Jaish-e-Mohammed chief to the Indians, then it is for India to be able to take out, on much like Osama bin Laden was taken out at Abbottabad. We have the capability, but it's a question of, do we have the resolve to do this? That resolve has been demonstrated in the attack at Balakot. So the resolve is not missing, the capability is available. It's a question of how much is the Indian state pushed. And once we realize that the Indian state is being pushed enough, we have the capability to neutralize him or to get him out. So neutralization would be possible through all means, whether it is through the air, on the ground. And to get him out would mean a very covert operation, for which possibly at this stage we may not have the entire capability of stealth which is to our advantage, but to neutralize him, certainly we have the capability which we have demonstrated so far. To the Air Force, to the Air Warriors, I would only like to say that whatever they're doing, their level of training is outstanding. They have to continue to train in the manner in which they have been doing all along. And when they continue to do what is expected of them in war, an Abhinandan results. And this is what is the high mark of and the culmination of training. Even in the World War I, when Baron Richthofen, the Red Baron, what he said was that the aggressive spirit must never be lost sight of, whether it is in the air or on the ground. And as far as training is concerned, we will fight the way we train. And if that is understood, then for a fighter pilot, years of training and the opportunity of a lifetime and the decision of a split second is what distinguishes a fighter ace from one who could have been a fighter ace. And Abhinandan has proven that he is truly made of the former. He is a fighter ace as far as we are concerned, and we salute his bravery.
Let us all rise and stand with our forces to make realize Pakistan its folly. If you like this video, do give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe National Defense. If you like our content and wish to support, you may do via Patreon. The link is given in description. Thank you for watching. Stay fit, stay healthy and stay tuned to National Defense. Jai Hind.